Hi, my name's Mary, and I wanted to share with you a few um, moments in my life and maybe talk about the differences of my experiences in the different sciences. And you're like, before you shut that channel off, I gotta tell you that all the comedy, like seriously, all the comedy happens with scientists that work in the field instead of in a cubicle. Although scientists who work in the field also spend time in the cubicle. Let me explain to you the difference between scientists in a cubicle and scientists in the field. First of all, scientists in the field forget fashion. They're women and whatever. High heels do not belong in the field, not at all. Makeup can be an attraction actually to bees, but wasps, insects, butterflies. So if you don't want things flying at your face, while you're in the middle of the field, you don't wear makeup. You do wear sunscreen, but you don't wear makeup. And sometimes you wear these really crazy hats and sunglasses, and you wear these oversized parkas if it's cold, and you always got boots on. And let me tell you, ladies, they're not the fashion boots that everybody's into. They're like rubber boots you can go through, cow dung in, because sometimes that's what, a lot of times that's what scientists are wading through is cow dung, because a lot of the, patches of, you know, unspoiled uh, ecologies they're after. They're in the middle of a cow field or something, so you have to wade through it. There's not a road, so and you're climbing fences, and you're going over barbed wire, and you have the farmer's permission, but he's not going to take down years of infrastructure just so it's you can daintily go through the field. Sometimes you end up showing up to the office like that, um, because you've just come in from the field. This is a lot different than people, let's say, in computer science or mathematics, even physicists, because physicists, they go from the office to, a laboratory or an accelerator or something, and you can wear, nice clothes relatively. I guarantee you that you won't rip them within the first day. And chemists also have problems with their clothes, because they work with a lot of toxic substances like hydrochloric acid. Yeah, we all think of hydrochloric acid because it's in our stomach. It's not that big a deal. When you get up to 15 molar hydrochloric acid, let me tell you how embarrassing that can be. So you get it spattered on your pants or your blouse or whatever. You go home, you think everything's fine, you put it in the wash machine. What comes back is a rag. It has literally eaten everything. You know those jeans you try so hard to put holes in and everything's pure amateurs, the scissors method. Go to chem lab, work there for a week, put your clothes in the washer. If you have a crotch left, consider yourself lucky and you've got a new fashion statement. That's why a lot of people wear clothes that have, lab coats and stuff, because, you can't tell when you walk out of the lab because it's all dried. But if you put it in the washer, it's like the parts that got spilt on are like dried leaves, and they're no longer part of the linen, and you don't realize it till you take it out, and it's like the first thing you want to say is holy hell. Yep. Okay. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest differences between people who go in the field and people who work with logarithms, either in computers, mathematics, physics, whatever. Um, Biologists have to go out in the field. Geologists have to go out in the field. Um, People into zoology, unless they work at a zoo, and even then, they dress for whatever, making it harder for things to get fangs through, or if you're after snakes, or making it harder to get bitten by 5 million mosquitoes, gnats. things like that. So, runway wear, no, not even Kohl's. Okay, I mean, so keep that in mind. All right, the difference between how people dress who are out in the fields and looking for things, and then how people are used to seeing people. So I'm going to tell you a story. I grew up with a woman who was in the environmental sciences and earth sciences. And this was back in the 60s, the 70s, when, laboratory science in elementary school was unheard of in many states. So I grew up in Minnesota. And I learned then what kind of, that occasionally people who work in the environmental sciences like biology, ecology, entomology, things like that, we're going to look like idiots. We are definitely at times going to look like idiots or crazy people. So I learned long ago, be ready for that because it's just part of the job. So I was in the area we were looking for crayfish. Mom was looking for stuff she could bring into the classroom in aquariums to talk about, swamps and marshes and pond life. So it really helps the students to have in this series examples of, here's a sedge, here's a reed, these are crayfish, this is a fish, these are frog, little frog newts. These are, watch them fully develop their legs and, go from little tiny tadpoles all the way up. This is a salamander, and it's really nice because a lot of people don't really want to go into swamps, so they don't really know what's there. So we're looking for these specimens. So what do we got on? We're wading in big boots, rubber Wellingtons. We got big rubber gloves on because we don't want to get our fingers chopped off by these miniature, lobster-looking things. We've got long pants on. We don't want, leeches. We've got heavy clothes on, like layers because we don't want to be bitten by mosquitoes that are out there. We got hats on. We've got, kerchiefs around our, bugger, whatever. Okay, we're out there. So because it was back in the 60s, 70s, kids didn't live in their rooms or fenced-in yards. Okay, and I lived in a small town. So kids and dogs and cats were free to roam all over the place, like for blocks, and be able to find their way home. This was one of the pluses of growing up in a society that wasn't paranoid, I guess is what you could call it. However, my mother in her rubber gloves, her black boots, her floppy hat, her, digging in going into a swamp with a kid that was about half her size, but also wearing questionable paraphernalia and carrying a bucket, rubber boots, the whole 9 yards, covered in mud, highly suspicious characters, right? But to a kid, it looks curious. So, like the neighborhood kids whose backyards, come out, and they'd come out, but they'd come out in practical clothes because, they're not looking for anything. So here they come out in shorts, no shoes, because why would you wear shoes in mud? No shoes, tops, whatever. And they're talking to us, and we're trying to get samples, and we're finding them and putting in buckets. My mom's explaining how this is going, and I think it's fun, and everybody's turning around trying to help. You know how kids are. And so my mom gives them jobs that are more or less safe, where they get to look at the stuff in the bucket and they can see with their eyes, and she has them standing where they're not going to get bit or, in leeches, whatever. But it looks, we're in the middle of nowhere in this swamp and on the edge of people's backyards. Finally, this lady comes flying out of the house. She's yelling at her kids that are standing with us. You stay away from those crazy ladies, Because to them, yeah, women just didn't do that back in the day unless they'd lost their minds. Okay? Um, and the kids that were with us, they gave us this really sad look because they were learning so much and they were involved in something that was really interesting and seeing things that were interesting. And they knew my mom because she had gone to all the schools and was the laboratory science teacher for all the schools, so they knew her. They gave us this kind of the sad look and went back in the house. So there was a lot of pressure in the 60s and 70s, not, for the kids growing up. Don't look like a doofus. That's not what's sexy. That's not what's in. Nobody cares. Wildlife, what's that? No, we're a technological society now. Um, and so I think that was part of the reason why there might have been a gap in biology of 30 years where there's now people who are 60, 70 years old who are retired but hung in there till they started to see, in PhDs in areas that were very knowledgeable. And then now, only recently, have 20-year-olds gone in for their doctorate. So there was a 30-year gap in biology, and people were wondering, well, how come we didn't know all this prior? Um, well, I guess there's a price for looking like an idiot or crazy when you're out in the field in protective clothing, trying to help educate the next generation in science. Maybe it sounds even bizarre. Maybe in other fields too, you know? So keep that in mind when you're seeing women in what people think of as a more, you know, man labor job where they're out fishing and tagging and hunting. And no, they're not going to look like they're going down a runway on Madison Fifth Avenue. Doesn't mean that they aren't pretty, doesn't mean that they aren't worth talking to, and it doesn't mean that they're crazy. Far from it. So here's hoping you got a little bit of a chuckle out of the story and have a better understanding of what that's like. So, signing off for now. Kind of an advocate for science and into science myself. So, and I'll explain some of the cool things that I'm doing in that area later. And I'll have more stories, funny stories. All right. Bye.